Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. So the Hotfix patch has been released. It's been about a couple of days now, at least here in Japan. And so I've spent quite a bit of time to understand the gist of what's happening and where I think the meta will likely shift towards in the coming weeks moving into Season 3. All that being said, if you want to see more Overwatch 2 content, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave your comments down below as to who you think will be the next big meta shifting character or characters, and be sure to follow me on twitch.tv/newfrontier_ for more Soldier 76 action. That being said, let's jump into things. So very strong, upper class, even, needs good team, and niche picks. Now these obviously go in the order of S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier, but for the sake of the video and just to kind of be more specific, these characters and where they're placed doesn't necessarily mean they're actually bad. All characters are viable, but again, according to the list, we'll get to see just what I'm talking about. So, in spite of all the nerfs to these specific characters, most notably Sojourn and Kiriko and Orisa, these three characters I still think are very strong in this particular format. Most notably for Sojourn, she just has a pretty well-rounded and consistent kit that allows for her to play mobility, to maneuver around enemies, flank them, engage, disengage, do all the things that a typical DPS just can't do. And her railgun damage is still fairly strong in spite of it being nerfed, and all the energy resources that have been nerfed to her kit, all of that still, you get value even if you are pocketed by a Mercy. Now again, it's slightly toned down, so you're not really getting consistent headshots as you would normally do before, but she's still a very potent DPS unit on the field, and as a result, she still remains in the very strong category. Kiriko is still the same. In spite of the nerf to her healing Ofuda, the amount of healing you can do is somewhat lessened, but in spite of that, I still think she is able to do her job as a support because she's still able to heal and now implement more attacks into her, into her regime, into her routine, so to speak, right? So all that being said, she's still very hard to kill as a support character. Her teleports, her Suzu, and her ult being arguably the strongest ult in the game by far is still a very, very strong character. And when you pair her up with other characters like, let's say, Ramatra, or even Roadhog still is very viable with her in her ult. So as a result of that, I think Kiriko is still a very, very strong unit. Moving into the new meta, which I think will likely be Winston, and we'll likely see him go to very strong very soon. That's just my assumption, because here in Japan right now, or even Korea, Winston is seeing a lot of play, and so is Tracer. And so I think these two are likely going to see kind of swap into the very strong category as time progresses. But for now, I think they remain upper class. We'll get to them shortly. So Orisa has been slightly nerfed, or at least, to some extent. Her fortitude has been nerfed ever so slightly, just so that she's not being so greedy and overly aggressive when it comes to her plays. This just basically puts her in a position where she now has to really think carefully as to her decision making, or at least the player's decision making, when they're on the battlefield. Because before, when she had a lot of fortify, even in metal ranks or even higher ranks, she was still a very hard target to kill. And so lessening that fortitude ever so slightly, just again, it's to be honest with you, it doesn't really make her any different than what she was before. It is just so that now she has to think a little bit more, again, a little bit more carefully as to how she approaches the backline, as opposed to just rushing in head on and getting value for it. Now, this is a pick that I think many people will likely agree upon in the coming months, especially going into the new season for Season 3. But Ramatra, I think, is going to be a very, very strong unit for the new meta. Because right now, with all the nerfs happening to Roadhog and every other respective character I've mentioned, I think Ramatra now has a place to really play his role as a mid-range poker and also a close-range brawler. He's more of the hybrid type of character that can utilize a lot of his utility just about anywhere. And so he can turn on the gas when he needs to, he can backpedal when he has to, and for that, I think Ramatra's kit overall makes him a pretty consistent character for not only easy players to pick up and play, but also veteran players to master. So I think we're likely going to see team comps where Ramattra will be at the forefront, and perhaps you'll have the likes of maybe Mercy pocketing, or maybe a Tracer, maybe a Soldier in there, perhaps even an Echo. Just characters who can move along with Ramattra's playstyle. We'll likely see that in the coming months of the new season moving forward. So for now, I place Ramattra up there. I think for sure he has potential to be a very, very viable unit. And so for that, I'm keeping him very strong. Next, we have upper class. Now, this is subject to change, as with any tier list, of course. But upper class, I think, are still extremely, extremely powerful characters in the right hands. And depending on your rank, of course, all of these variables have to be considered. So upper class, to me, I still think are extremely good characters. And when you put them into the right team composition, they can be very good. So D.Va, I think, is really good. Honestly, I think she's still a strong character to optimize in Overwatch 2. Her defense matrix still prevents a lot of enemies from, flanking or just poking. And her peeling is still really, really strong. This just makes her a really strong unit. And if we are moving into somewhat of a Winston meta, which I think we might see, then I think D.Va will likely be a character that more tank players will likely utilize and take advantage of, because her kit really is fundamentally at its core a very, very strong kit, and it can prevent a lot of pressure from the likes of even Sojourn, even the likes of Ramattra, because with D.Va, she can just suck up all of his, attacks, or she can suck up his main attack. Of course, she can't really suck up his punches, but if he's poking from mid-range or long range, then D.Va can still be there to handle all that. Ashe, I still think, is extremely viable in this meta, and pretty much any meta moving forward. I think Ashe is just a consistently good character. She plays a role where she wants to poke you, she wants to annoy you, throw dynamite, do damage over time, and when she builds enough meter for her ult, Bob comes out, and pretty much it's a 6v5. So Ashe, I still think, is really, really good, as long as she has the high ground to, get off angles for her one-shots or just body shots. If she's pocketed by Mercy, even if she's with Ana, she still gets value with Nano. So I still think Ana, or why do I say Ana? I'm getting confused here. Ashe is just a very, very strong unit, and I think that's why she remains in the upper class format. Now with Echo. We'll get to Ana eventually. I got my words mixed up. But Echo overall, I think, as a character, is extremely versatile. And the reason why I keep her upper class and not even is because with Echo's playstyle, she can play a grounded game where she can poke you from mid-range. And when she feels pressured, she can easily just get out of the way, go up in the sky, and continue to pressure you with an onslaught of just pellets in your face. Not only that, but she also is a character where if you master her, you get heavily rewarded, because if you can utilize every character in the game, you can literally be a one-man machine with Echo. And if she gets pocketed by Mercy and she's always in the air, you can't really touch her that much. So Echo remains upper class for me. Regardless of the meta, I think Echo will always be a character that I think people will sleep on, just because for the average player, Echo is a character that's kind of tough to utilize, because once again, like I said, you have to know how to use every character, or at least to some extent understand their character's kits. And so at low rank, she may not be as viable, but at a higher rank, we've seen the likes of Samido, for example, who uses her extremely well, and she can get extraordinary value out of her kit. And now upper class for Roadhog. I still think Roadhog is exceptionally good, just for the fact that we've seen Six, for example, and here's a little video of what Six can do, in the right hands. We've seen him kidnapping people with this, the new strat is kidnapping, what we've seen on stream. And the fact that you can just pull people in with environments is insane now. So I think with Roadhog, his value is still very much there. I don't think his value drops. I think the doom posting about Roadhog being completely, nerfed to the ground, I think that's a little bit over exaggerated. And I can understand, sure, his kit has been substantially nerfed, and for good reason. Of course, the one-shot meta was really a headache for a lot of people, including myself. But I do think that Roadhog still has extraordinary value, just because now I feel his kit has more team value as opposed to him just being able to walk off on his own and be greedy. Now he has to really think about his positioning. He has to think about where his teammates are, where his healers are, and it's all about like being coordinated. So I think if Roadhog players can be more coordinated, and really, to be honest with you, I think now Roadhog players have somewhat of a skill expression, because now it's harder to get your one shots. So now you have to be a little bit more inventive with how you utilize your hook to get the kills. So are you going to hook like Six does and kidnap the enemy tank and get value and body block? Or are you going to, you know, use your hook and try and get your teammates to take out the enemy in front of you that you've hooked? Like, there are so many different things you can still do with Roadhog that I still think makes him a very viable character. He's extremely tanky. He's, you know, sustainable with his own healing. His hook is still very dangerous if you get in his way, and depending on the map, he's still very, very lethal. So for that, he's still upper class. Junkrat, we all know Junkrat is a character that is really, really good at just excelling at zoning the enemy team. You know, it's all about positioning. It's all about just playing off angles, annoying the opponents, and just denying area, right? That's what Junkrat's role is as a character. He wants to pretty much zone you out as much as you can, trap you, and just get value from you making mistakes and getting annoyed. And now, because Roadhog has been, you know, nerfed, I think that this puts Junkrat slightly down. Of course, before when Roadhog was really good, Junkrat would be up there, was very strong. But I still think Junkrat is still a very, very viable character. He can still, you know, play his role exceptionally well, and I don't think that players should sleep on Junkrat anytime soon. I still think moving into a new meta, he'll still be okay. Granted, if Winston does become the meta, then maybe Junkrat has to be more careful. But right now, just as things stand, I think Junkrat's totally fine. And now Doomfist. So Doomfist as a tank is still viable, and I still feel he's upper class. If we are indeed moving into a Winston meta where we're going to see a lot more dive-oriented team compositions, then we're likely going to see the likes of Doomfist, because much like Winston, they both play very similarly in that they want to be diving, they want to be pretty much ignoring the enemy tank, going for those hot picks in the back line, and then coming back, get their heals, rinse and repeat, and before you know it, game over. So I think in the right hands, Doomfist is a very, very viable unit. I think he's one of the characters in the game that requires a lot of mechanical skill, understanding of just game sense. Your position needs to be important, and just utilizing his kit effectively is really where Doomfist shines most importantly. So if you're able to check off all of those, you know, those boxes, then definitely Doomfist is going to be dangerous. Now in lower ranks where perhaps Doomfist, his potential may wane, just because again he is a skill-oriented character. A lot of high skill expression is in this character's kit. So if you can master Doomfist before the new meta shift happens, fantastic, because you're preparing yourself for the better. And for that, I still keep Doomfist upper class. Soldier 76. Now you're probably thinking, really? Is he not even? Now maybe this is my bias, as I do main Soldier 76, but I feel like his kit overall is so well-rounded that Soldier can pretty much go into any meta that he wants, and he can fit there. Doesn't matter if it's the Orisa meta, Ramatra meta, you know, Diva Winston meta, or Doomfist. Soldier will always be a very strong team pick, just because his kit is so well-rounded. He has mobility, he's got self-sustain, he can help the team with his healing. His damage output is you know, more than decent, and for that, Soldier 76 remains upper class for me. I still, you know, just because a character looks to be generic by most standards doesn't necessarily mean the character is bad. You know, he may not be a master in one particular area, but you should never really sleep on Soldier 76, because for one, Soldier still has the likes of Nano from Ana and the likes of pocketing or Pocket Mercy. So if Mercy's pocketing you and you have a Kiriko on your team, Soldier 76 gets insane value from her ult and from Mercy's boost, or even a nano boost from Ana. So Soldier is very, very viable if you have a great team composition, B, you just have a good game sense and understanding of your positioning, playing your angles correctly, and just D, all of the above. Like you just have to make sure that you are mastering Soldier. He's easy to pick up. He's definitely a character that if you master him, he becomes an insane valuable unit. So for that, upper class. And of course, no surprise here, we have Tracer. Tracer is a character that I think will always be a pick that will require players to be a lot more focused and very like specific. And by that I mean you have to really play with her a lot to really understand how she works. She's not a character where you can pick up for like a few games and think, oh yeah, I'm good now. No, she's not like a Soldier 76 where he's very easy to pick up and play and understand. Blinking and knowing when to blink in and out, knowing when to use your teleport, knowing when to use your pulse bomb, all of these things are really valuable. And at the highest level, Tracer is insane. We've seen Korean servers, at least on my end, Tracer is a monster. In the right hand, she is a monster. She's hard to deal with, and she's like a mosquito. She's hard to kill. So for that, she's upper class. I would even put her in very strong, to be honest with you, because right now, I guess I'll keep her where she is, but I think as we move into a new meta where I definitely feel like Winston may come back, I feel like Tracer is going to be up there with very strong. Widowmaker, upper class for sure. The reason why I put her here not very strong is just because if we do move into a faster paced meta again, Widowmaker will likely see, Doomfist or Winston where she's not really too happy with that. But right now, as it stands with Roadhog being nerfed and, Orisa still being there and Ramattra, I think slowly kind of making his way up there, I think Widow still has her place. And in the right hands, she's a monster. At higher level elos, she's a monster. But at low levels, like meta levels, I think she kind of falls off in terms of her potential, hence why I think she's upper class and not like very strong. So I'm trying to like base the character list on like everything as a whole and not so much just like, oh, this tier or this level, that level. I think at a high level, she's really good. She's incredibly powerful, but just as like, let's say a litmus test based on medal ranks, she is very much upper class though. She still gets the job done and she still gets her picks, but yeah, I think she's still very, very strong, but just not like extremely strong. At least that's my thought. She has to be in the right player's hands to get the right amount of value. Upper class for me, Ana too. I think Ana is really, really good right now. She's got a really great kit that allows for you to essentially sleep enemy targets, basically whittle down their health with your grenades, and you have nano boosts. And if Ramattra is in fact going to be that new, meta driven character, then Ana will be good because of her sleep darts. Putting this guy to sleep when he ults is going to be of good value. So Ana for that is still upper class. She's really, really good. Mercy, of course, we already know, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to pocketing certain characters like Sojourn or even Soldier 76, Mercy still gets value. She's hard to kill. In the right hands, she is basically a jet plane moving left and right. She's really, really hard to kill on field, and for that, she remains upper class. Not much else to say about that. We already know her role. She wants to be there to essentially boost the enemy, or boost your team's damage so that the enemy has a hard time dealing with you. And then, as I said here, upper class for Winston. Winston, there is probably going to be another patch, or not another patch, but rather another video that I make, because this will likely change. But right now, as it stands, I think Winston is slowly moving up. I would have put him in even before, but I think just like D.Va, they're both slowly moving up that ladder and they're inching their way towards a very strong category. And so look out for these two in the near future, because I think they're going to really be, a threat to these guys. These guys, typically they want to be just, abusing you. And these two want to be abusing the back. They want to be jumping in. And of course, this guy too. So look out for these two. Winston is just a dive character. He wants to go into the back line. He doesn't care what Orisa is doing. He just wants to go in, put his bubble down, shock a few guys, come back, rinse and repeat. So once this guy gets value, then I don't know what's going to happen between these two, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, my theory is that we'll slowly see these two come up into the very strong category. But for now, upper class is still a very, very good class to be in. And lastly, Sigma. Sigma is by far, in my opinion, the most versatile, the most balanced, the most just like consistent damage driven tank unit in the game. So he'll always be upper class in my eyes. Do I think he'll be very strong at all? Not necessarily. I think his kit alone already makes him a substantially powerful character. And depending on the map, of course, you already know, Circle Royale is one of his best maps, if not his best, arguably speaking. And so just that in mind should already give you enough to tell, okay, this guy will always be a valuable character in any meta. He's just got a great kit, good shield, good utility in terms of, just blocking enemy damage and healing himself, big rocks in your face to stun you. He can one-shot you technically if you aim well. So he's got really good skill expression, and I think that's also very valuable for Sigma. So if you like Sigma out there, now's your chance to utilize him, because I think moving into, again, the new meta, or at least the new season, I feel like Sigma will be a good pick. Now, this is even. Now, even does not mean that these characters are bad. Remember, I want to reiterate this really carefully, that even does not mean that these characters are bad picks. It just means that they're in a place where it's really like hit or miss, right? You're either popping off with them or you're getting popped. So in the case of Zarya, I'd say she's even right now. I still feel like if we are going to be moving into like a dive meta of that sort, Zarya, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell. But right now, as it stands currently, with Roadhog being nerfed, Orisa still being in the game, honestly, you know what? I'm gonna put Zarya upper class. The reason why I say that is because Orisa still exists, and Orisa can get countered by Zarya, and I don't think a lot of players are doing that right now. People are just kind of going and Orisa mirroring, or maybe going Ramattra or whatever. But I think Zarya, honestly, the more I think about it, she's actually quite good. She's got bubbles for her teammates, for herself. Her main weapon pretty much just zaps Orisa. Doesn't even care what she's doing. Zarya can literally just walk in front of Orisa and just zap her, and Orisa can't do anything about it. So for that, now that I think about it, yeah, I think she's upper class. And for the time being. So again, Zarya has value, her ult has value, her ult pairs well with certain characters. And so if you're able to utilize the right team composition, I think Zarya can be of great value to, leveling up in the game of Overwatch 2. So for that, I think I'll keep her upper class for now. We'll see what happens, but this is currently what I'm thinking as far as where the new patch will take us into the future. Now, even Bastion is even just because he's really hit or miss. Like, you're either going to get value out of Bastion or you're not, right? You're either really strong with the character or you're just not at all. And so Bastion is just a big walking fridge, and it's very easy to just be a bullet sponge for the other team. Your hitbox is so big that you can be seen from pretty much a mile away. So if you can utilize your turret effectively and just tear down the enemy target, then sure, if you can get value. I mean, surely if Mercy's pocketing you, then yeah. But in most cases, Bastion really has to play his positioning really, really well to get extraordinary value, because it's really easy to predict when he's going to go for his turret form. And when he does, it's really easy to just predict that and move out of harm's way, and then wait till he comes out of turret form and just blow him up. So for that, he stays even for now. I don't think he's going to really change any meta anytime soon, so he'll stay there. Cassidy I think is also even. In the right hands, he's a powerful character. We've seen Wanted, showcase this character, and he's got great value. But again, I think just if we're moving into a slightly more faster paced meta, at least moving forward, I'm not saying right now, I want to reiterate this, just for now, we're still in this Orisa Ramattra era, but I think we're going to slowly move into this Winston form very soon. So I don't know if Cassidy might survive in that era. So for that, I think he's even. His damage output is still decent. His magnetic grenade is really strong, and his ult, of course we already know his ult is not that great. It's good for scaring people away, But other than that, I think if you're able to get your shots down, he's good for that. Of course, against the likes of Pharah or even, you know, Echo or Mercy, he's still pretty good for hit scan. And then Genji. Genji, I think, is still even. His kit is still very useful. And we've seen, you know, Shader 2K and Necro still make the character look like he's an S tier character. But those are obviously polarities. You know, those are players who have mastered the character to the, you know, uppermost extent of that character's use. So at the average player level, I think Genji is still even. He's fun to play, obviously. A lot of people love the character. He's popular. So we'll still see him a lot on the ladder. But will he, you know, outperform other units like Junkrat or Tracer or Widowmaker or even Ashe? It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say. So for that, I think he's even. Pharah, I think he's even too. In the right hands, again, she can be annoying and a pest, but again, she can spam projectiles from afar and make it hard for you to kind of get in. She's kind of like an aerial Junkrat where she kind of wants to just like keep you out of space. You know, she wants to keep that space for her team and to zone you out. But other than that, I think if you have someone like Soldier 76 on your team, you can just zap her out of the sky and she's pretty much done. Same with Ashe. And then Reaper. Reaper, I think, is even. A lot of people would say that he's kind of a boring character, and I think he is kind of boring. You know, on certain maps, he obviously gets value on very close quarters combat, like Ilios, for example, or, you know, Oasis. Those maps, I think Reaper does really well on. But overall, I still think Reaper, he has value. And again, if we are moving into a Winston type of format, at least in the future, I think Reaper will slightly see more value just because of that, because Reaper counters Winston. But right now, because we're still seeing, wow, I can't even talk. We're still seeing Orisa and Ramatra on the ladder. And so Reaper is okay. He's not like going to be carrying any games anytime soon. And of course, Roadhog still exists. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see that much Reaper, but who knows? The future can always change. And then we have Symmetra. Symmetra, I think, is even. I think she's strong. Don't get me wrong. I think she's actually a slept-on character. But the reason why I put her on even is there's just other characters that can really keep Symmetra at bay. You know, you have the likes of Tracer. You have got Soldier 76. You know, again, Roadhog still rampant. You've got Ashe. You know, and if you're playing Sigma, you can. Well, yeah, technically you can run Sigma and still knock her out. But you've got Diva too, you know, you got Winston. So a lot of these characters can actually give her a hard time. I'm going to restart this real quick. So yeah, for that, I think Symmetra is great on some maps, but on all maps or most maps, I think that she still has a tough time, especially on the more open maps, like push maps, for example. She's just not as potent as she would be on, let's say, Lijiang Tower or let's say Oasis, where those maps are a little bit more close quarters and she can plant her turrets around for more value. Even Eichenwald is a pretty good map for her, especially on the first checkpoint where you could just, you know, pretty much camp that bridge and the overpass. But other than that, I think she's even, but we'll see in the future. Torb is a tough one. And I had a hard time thinking whether he'd be upper class or even. And the only reason why I'm putting him in even is just, like his kit is obviously really good in the sense that he can bully you from a range. Like he can be a pest, and being a pest in this game can win you games, surprisingly enough. And so his damage, surprisingly, is pretty good. And so if you're able to get value out of his turret and just him, you know, shooting you with, you know, Cheetos, then yeah, you know, he gets value. But if you're able to lock Torb down and pressure him enough, it's really hard for Torb to get any sort of value, right? Like he can sustain himself, but again, if you're locking him down, like you still have Junkrat around, you have Soldier around, you have Tracer, maybe no, but you know, you have Widowmaker around. You still have characters that can still give, you know, your boy a hard time. So for that, I put him in even. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I might slip him up to upper class maybe in the next video. But for now, I think he remains even for now. Junker Queen. Junker Queen, I honestly want to put her higher. I I really feel like this character is going to have so much more value now. You know what? You know what? I'm going to be the devil's advocate. I'm actually going to put her next to Roadhog. And the reason why is because Junker Queen and Roadhog share similarities in that they're both brawlers. They both want to be in your face. But Junker Queen right now just has the upper hand with that speed. And she actually can do decently against Ramatra. Roadhog, of course, no, but she can bully Zarya. She can bully Sigma. So I think Junker Queen is upper class. I think now with the legs of Orisa kind of slowly coming down, she's still up there, but Junker Queen can still hold her own. And with the right team compositions, I think she can be of good value. Like, of course, if you have Kiriko and you have on your team, you can do a lot of things with this character. Sure, one could argue, oh well, if counterplay is countering her ult and do Suzu. But if you have Suzu on your team, then you also get value as well. So it really comes down to your team composition and how you communicate. It's all about coordination, I think, with Junker Queen to make her really good. If you can coordinate with your team well enough, this character is a monster. If not, then she falls down. And then Baptiste. Baptiste, I think, is still even. He is still pretty good anywhere. I feel his kit is still very useful. And so as long as you're able to pick off enemy teams while still being able to support your team with heals, Baptiste is still really, really strong overall. Do I think he's upper class? Not so much. I think Anna still does an exceptional job. Same thing with Mercy in terms of her role, what she can do. But Baptiste, I think at times he can still be bullied. And so it's, hard at times. But again, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the new meta. Moira, I still think is even. She gets the job done when she has to, but if you're able to predict her movement and really just force her into her teleports, then you just get value. And so, of course, if the Moira is smart enough to get away from that, then sure. But I think in most cases, Moira is a character where if you predict her movement and predict her teleports enough, you can always kill her. So I think she's great in the sense that she can do damage for the team. She can heal. But again, if you're not careful, she can just get wiped out. And if you see the likes of upper class, yeah, these characters can actually do quite a good amount of damage to Moira if she's not careful. Now, Lucio, I wanted to put him upper class, but I think he's still even now, just because I feel like the other supports like Kiriko and Mercy still do a really good job. Ana too, like they're still really, really strong. And because we're still seeing Roadhog on the ladder, I still think these two characters, or these three rather, are still really, really good above Lucio. Lucio, he's really all about coordination. I think that's what really makes Lucio a strong unit, is that he has to be coordinated to get the job done. And with regards to how team comps work in ranked, where it's just kind of random, we've seen the Overwatch League, for example, where Lucio wants to be on a team where he's really organized. Like in an organized comp, Lucio would go from even all the way to very strong, by far, hands down. But because we're talking about ranked where every player's skill level will vary, Lucio's value can really be inconsistent. And so while he produces speed boost for the team and decent healing, and of course his ult is really, really strong for just momentum shifting, I still think overall he requires a lot of team coordination to get the most value out of his kit. And so for that, I put him at even. He still gets the job done if you're able to work well with your team, but if you're not working well, he doesn't really get much out of it. And with Sojourn still wandering around, she can still one-shot this guy off the wall. So yeah. Next, now these are characters that I think needs a good team. Now I could easily put Lucio in that category too, but I still think Lucio is even. So these characters are not bad. Again, I want to reiterate this again. These characters are not bad at all. This whole tier list is not a bad tier list. This is a position where I feel these characters need to have a good team to get the most value out of their kit. Hanzo needs to have a really good tank, a really good support to keep him alive the tank needs to be dispersing enemies so that Hanzo can get value. Unlike with Widowmaker, where she can just grapple her way out and be safe, and she can put down her poison trap to really keep people in check. Hanzo, all he really has is like, you know, he can dive in the air, he can climb up walls, but it's still like he needs to have a strong angle. He needs to have good positioning. And if he has a weak tank, or let's say weak supports who can't really, you know, give him that leverage that he needs, then he falls off pretty bad. Is he a bad character? By all means, no. He's actually a really good character. It's just that he needs a good team to do the most for him. Same thing with Mei. Mei I love so much. In fact, I've used her quite a lot this season, and I feel like she's a very slept on character. But because we're in a meta now where we're seeing like, you know, Orisa, Ramatra, we're still seeing Hogs, some Junker Queens in there. And again, like I said, we're likely going to see some Winstons up there soon. Mei needs, again, coordination. She's not a character where you can just pick up and just throw walls up all over the place, because if you're not communicating with your team on how to actually use their wall and utilize it correctly, you're actually doing more harm than good to your team if you're just throwing up a wall for no reason. And then, of course, you're wasting your own cooldowns. So meter management is so important with Mei. Her ice block, or rather her heal, is also important. You don't want to be wasting that. And I've seen so many instances where players would just waste their heal and then just get bopped and then throw up a wall randomly out of panic. So for that, Mei is a team coordinated player. She needs to be on a team who's organized, who's communicating as to where to put the walls, who to block off. All these things are what make Mei very strong. She needs to have that strong communication factor. And if you don't have that, then she's somewhat null and void. Same thing with Brig. Brig is like a calm based character. She wants to be like communicating. She wants to know where everything's, you know, she wants to know what's happening and where it's happening and why it's happening. So that way she can better position herself to get the right angles, to get the right picks, and help her backline survive, but also her tank survive, and also DPS. So she's not a bad character. In fact, I think Brig is slept on, but because this meta is slowly shifting into a somewhat more faster paced meta, I'm not too sure. Like, we'll see. You know, Brig is a character that can easily be a top tier unit depending on how the meta shifts. So we'll see what happens. But again, she needs a good team to do well. She needs to have good coordination, otherwise she falls apart. Same thing with Zenyatta. Zenyatta is a very powerful unit. Discording on, let's say, Ramatra or even a fatty like Orisa, this character can actually just erase characters very easily. But once again, he needs coordination to do the job. And if you don't have that coordination, Zenyatta can easily get picked off. You can easily get jumped on and just die and then get no value. So as long as you have a good team composition, as long as you're communicating, Zenyatta gets insane value, just like, you know, a Lucio would. But other than that, he needs a good team. And then we have the niche picks. These are picks that I still feel have their value in some way, but are extremely niche because they need some work. So for one, Wrecking Ball, very high skill based character. You need to be mastering this character at all levels to get the most out of him. And he's very niche because, again, he just wants to be off on his own, and your team needs to be aware of that. So he needs to be communicating. So if you're not doing that, Wrecking Ball just really does nothing. Like, if you're just running around blindly thinking you can get picks and you're dying, then you're actually the one doing harm to your team, not the other way around. So for that, he's niche. Sombra, I love this character. In fact, I want to play her so bad. Like, right now, Soldier is my main, but I want to have Sombra as my secondary because I feel like her mobility is really good. The way in which she plays is exceptionally good because she wants to be the person calming. She wants to be the person telling your team where the enemies are, getting good picks, hacking the right enemies, getting great value, positioning, off angles. Sombra like has it all, but just her power level is just really weak. And right now her hacks just don't give off enough value. So of course we already know she's getting changes in season 4 perhaps. So we'll likely see some potential reworks for her kit. Hopefully it'll make her a lot better and more well-rounded, and in that case I'll be using her a lot more, but for now I think she's a niche pick. And then Reinhardt I feel can slowly make his way up. I think he has potential to be even actually But right now, because we're still seeing these characters around lurking in the shadows, Reinhardt can still get pulverized if he's not careful. So he's still niche. He's still really strong on some maps, but most maps I think he still gets bullied. So just something to be mindful of. So all that being said, it's been like what, 40 minutes? It's crazy. But I hope this tier list for now has given you an insight as to what I think right now is the new format, at least moving into the new meta, what I think the new meta will be. And like I said, look out for Winston, look out for Diva, look out for Doomfist. Roadhog I still think is exceptionally good. And these two right here are going to be your picks moving forward. So that being said, what do you folks think? Where do you want to put, your characters? Where do you think these characters are placed? What do you think the meta is going to be moving forward? Let me know in the comment section. And until next time, I'll see you folks on the next video. Once again, be sure to follow me on twitch.tv/newfrontier_ for more action. Till then, peace out.